Welcome to the Atlanta Startup Podcast. I'm Lisa Calhoun, the host today, and I'm super excited to be interviewing one of Atlanta's top entrepreneurs and a good friend of mine, Steven Carse with King of Pops.
Hey, good to see you.
We're in Steven's office, and it is super fun. I mean, he has a rainbow on the whole wall, which is thank you for hosting this in your actual place of business. I appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Fun to be in the office. Haven't updated it since we moved in, but it's still looking good.
It's still looking great.
Yeah.
I mean, the worldwide headquarters for King of Pops here on, DeKalb Avenue is
Yeah.
quite a destination for me. I really enjoy
We
it.
painted the building in a couple of years after we got it, and more people asked us then if we had purchased the building than when we purchased it, because it was this nondescript beige color with fences around it. And then we got a grant from like that facade improvement grant. So we were able to make it fuchsia and plant some trees and get rid of the fences, and I think it looks at least better.
The artwork is great.
Yeah.
And some of the plantings really beautiful, like the
Yeah.
bottle brush and things like that. I really like it. So what's your favorite flavor this month as we do this interview here in June?
So we did a road trip campaign this year where we are experiencing flavors from across really the South. My favorite that we created, I can't release all of them quite yet, but we have a mango mojito one that is very good when it's this heat dome level weather that they say that we're in.
Yeah.
New word that I'm learning, but just very, very hot out. So it's a super refreshing one. So I'll go with that mango
So
mojito.
these days, where can people get King of Pops?
Whew, it's a great question. We're in mainly push carts around the South. We're in a select number of independent grocers, and then we're in Whole Foods and Fresh Market. But those are like the headlines when people say Whole Foods and Fresh Market and things like that. People like usually write that down and forget everything else. But we're kind of the inverse. Like 95% of our sales are happening out of little push carts that are pop-up events, that type of thing, that you really have to either go to our website to see where they are or follow us or a franchisee on Instagram.
Cool. And you're still got a good catering business too, right?
Catering business is about, almost, it's over half. It's almost 60% of our sales are us going to, on the small end, like weddings or graduation parties, and the large end, like corporate activations when they're trying to put a custom wrapper with a certain flair in front of a customer in a fun way. So we've done stuff with CeraVe, which is kind of random. I had an all-natural bug spray company reach out to me, see if I could make a pop with their bug spray. That was kind of a fun one to explore. Their whole shtick was like, it's definitely safe to eat. I was like, I don't know. We might make this as a white label opportunity, but I don't think we're gonna sell it.
You already put our name on it. Yeah, citronella flavor.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of this. Their claim was like a lot of the things like that are natural flavors, and we've been known to make some lemongrass flavors. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, there we go.
Little coconut.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely that time of year where we cannot make enough pops, and trying to both get the pops cranked out, get some new flavors cranked out, and then help people find them, which seems like we'd have figured it out 15 years in, and we figured out a lot of things, but it's still a challenge.
I'm going to hold the thought of asking you about your book because I know that's new too.
Yeah.
But because you just talked about, we could have figured it out 15 years ago, maybe, but there's so much change in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, right now we're even in a period where most people would say we're kind of at hyper change, and could the pace of change get any faster?
Yeah.
I was wondering what things you believed 15 years ago when you started this that possibly you don't believe anymore. And it's not a wrong or right question. It's more like just kind of the evolution of you as an entrepreneur and someone running a business in these days.
Gosh, I mean, I think the things that I think are maybe like they feel like getting older and being jaded, and so I almost like hesitate to say them out loud. But I think like some of the harder truths of running a business like have proved to be true that like in my early days I wanted to believe were not. So that might just be like,
Yeah.
I wanted this place to be the most important thing for everybody that worked here.
Yeah.
And I think that like really inspired what a lot of people felt about King of Pops,
Mm.
but it was really hard on me because it might have been that for 50% of people, but there was another 50% of people that this was just a job.
Yeah.
And for half of my time doing this, I like was not okay with that. And that was like, this can't just be that. So I think I realized like it's okay for somebody to be making pops or selling pops and that just to be a job. And I'm kind of at peace with that. So that's one thing.
So
You
you
know,
let that go.
I kind of let it
Yeah,
go.
let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's been healthy. And I think there's people that love it just as much as in the early days. But there's also people that like it. Okay.
They're on their own
They're
journey.
on their own journey.
It's just a part of it.
Yeah. And so that's been one learning. I mean, I think like a bit more tactical one is like revenue versus profit versus cash has been just like
You have
I'm still
evolved
learning
over
that
the years.
lesson.
Yes.
I'm still learning that lesson, but we'll talk about it a little later. We exited a distribution company where really like our unfamiliarity or like discomfort with that compared to the popsicle business, like it's basically like the opposite as far as margins and cash flow in a lot of ways was like, you know, a real challenge for us to get to know. But learning those lessons, I think, is going to help us run a better business for King of Pops. I think in the early days, I just thought mainly revenue and then profit kind of matters. 15 years later, I think I'm realizing that cash flow matters and as well, which seems like I could learn that faster, right?
So cash flow matters. Cash flow is king at King of Pops.
I guess. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm leading the company in that way, but I need to think about it more. I'm thinking about it. Let's just put it there. I don't know if I'll say it's king quite yet.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, your brand has a lot to do with fun, enjoyment, and I think of it as also so full of sensations. I mean, I always look forward to the flavors,
Yeah.
and I'm never disappointed.
Yeah.
And there are always flavors that I never thought I would want to try, and then I'm like, who would have thought of that? Let's
Yeah.
before that's gone.
Yeah.
I need that
The
one.
scarcity is an interesting part of our business that's like a happy mistake. It's like it started out of going to farmers markets and having, they had 3 boxes of mangoes, or it's not a good example, 3 boxes of blackberries, and then figuring out what we're going to do with that when we get home.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of morphed into like figuring out how to do that at a larger scale. And we have franchisees to the mix. And this has been a really fun challenge, but a hard challenge in that like in order for there to be scarcity and a lot of flavors, like you just have to constantly be running out of flavors. And like, but that flavor is selling so well, can't we just have it forever? I'm like, yeah,
And
we
bring it
could.
back
And we
next
have
year.
this, and this.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to manage that, and I think it's our customers feel that too. Like there's a tech solution for us to be able to show where each flavor is at each time that we've not figured out. And I think it will get easier and easier over time, but we haven't invested in and or done it. But it is kind of like that mystery that you spoke to of like,
What do they have?
what the heck's gonna be
I
there?
need to check in. Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know, it's an unintentional part of our business that is probably helping hurt us in different ways.
You've always been an innovator around your business. I mean, I think that you're just a natural innovator. And so I remember it's been a few years now, but you were exploring growing some of your own flavors. Any lessons learned from some of those experiments?
Yeah, we grow produce still at King of Crops, so that's still there. COVID was not the best for a lot of businesses, including the popsicle business. So our farm team strategy has changed, and now we basically have a $1 a month lease with a guy that's a great farmer, and we buy the produce from him. So we got blackberries, blueberries, muscadines, and yeah, farming's just hard. Like,
Yeah.
it is expensive if you like see it and you're connected with it. Like if I go out there and eat those blackberries, to me they're like, oh my gosh, it's so much better than any other blackberry. Is that the actual truth? If I were to have a panel of people tasting those, they're probably pretty good blackberries, but not worth 2 or 3x the cost for a lot of people. So it's really about the story. I think it plays into that a lot of like we care about these things. I think you can like observe it. Like one thing that we've never told people because it's not true is that we're organic. Like we use a ton of organic ingredients, maybe even majority, but to be certified organic, you have to be obviously using all organic and all XYZ. In our like hierarchy, first thing's delicious, second is local, and then third is organic. Like that's
Yeah.
not it's not the highest on our totem pole at this point. But yeah, I don't really know where we're going with that. But
No, that's really cool. Local being important. I think
yeah,
that really matters a lot,
yeah,
to Atlanta, to Georgia,
yeah,
and Georgia grows so many great
yeah,
crops. So it's nice to know that they're finding their way.
yeah.
To
Oh yeah,
crops.
oh yeah,
Yeah. So you've talked about some of the hard things, and yet I know this book, which I really enjoyed reading, that just came out, that work is fun. That is a uh, first off, how did you sit down and write a book? Let's get real. That's a lot of work. It's a heavy lift. It's beautifully written. It's
yeah,
easy to read. I
yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, the process for me was 5 a.m. I'm gonna have 2 hours by myself and wrote from 5 to 7. It took me about a year and a half to write it. The end of that period, my wife was pregnant with our second kid. So I had a very good deadline. Like, and you don't know the exact deadline, but it was gonna be somewhere between, 8 and 9 months. So that really pushed me like to ship. I'm actually like the opposite. I think a lot of people have like this, they hold on to things a lot and they're
Yeah,
perfectionists.
yeah.
I have the opposite problem in that sometimes I will ship things like that aren't ready and too soon. So I was really weary of that, but I had like a writing coach and then like a legitimate publisher, it helped like make sure the quality
Professionalized,
was there.
of
Yeah, so I mean,
course.
I'd written a lot of the ideas over several years. I compiled them over a little over a year, and it's just 100% before work. 7 was like kind of when my daughter was waking up. I was in charge of that, so it's amazing. Like 5 a.m. pre-kids, I didn't do much. I slept. Now it's like my power 2 hours. I still do that, and like I've got like my own little chat GPT coach that's like, okay, what am I going to do during my like focus block? Does this count? And it'll kind of advise me like, you're not really doing CEO work. Like anyone could do that. Yeah. It's usually actually positive, but that's my aspiration for it is to be like, no, this is the thing that you need to do while you're not interrupted, while you're
So what is your
thinking
chat?
clearly.
All right, I want to get back to the book, but
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
AI.
yeah.
And so what do you mean you have a chat GPT coach? Did you build a project or a custom GPT?
Yeah, just like with authors and thinkers that I appreciate that have either built businesses that I'd want to emulate or have talked about things in ways. I think I've actually heard that this is going to be like problematic in some ways because it could narrow our thinking. I think a lot of people will end up doing this because it's so effective. It's like, what would blank person do?
Oh, absolutely.
So
I
you
mean,
want to make sure you're somehow throwing in some variety, but it's hard.
I have very often gone to therapy when I need therapy. I'm a taker
Yeah,
of therapy, but I haven't been to a therapist in a while. I love ChatGPT because I have a GPT that's like, what would Tara Brach say?
yeah,
Like, and
yeah,
she's the author of Radical Acceptance,
yeah,
and that tends to be some of
yeah,
my frontier issues
yeah,
around, let go, accept, things like
yeah.
that. And so, I
It's super
mean,
helpful.
it's awesome.
It's so helpful. Yeah. So I mean that's been powerful for me. I mean, a lot of times I know, but I'll just even still the act of writing is still helpful, even if you're just writing a prompt. You kind of can guess what it's gonna say, but then it does say it. Or it says something that surprises you, or it adds like one other detail that you want to take into consideration. So that's been really helpful. And then like the other thing on AI that just popped into my mind about this is like I wrote a book I would think as the last period where like I don't know, I guess it's going to
Or
continue
chat
to
didn't
evolve.
write it. Yeah,
It existed and
right.
like it could do it, but it just wasn't
Good
good.
enough. Right.
And I think that's going to be so challenging for writers of like my caliber that are not professional writers that want to
Mm,
put out something to still, I don't know that you shouldn't use it or should use it, but put the same amount of time into thinking about what you want to say.
yeah.
That's going to be, I think, just no matter how you believe in positive, negative, etc. about AI, I think that humans are lazy and that's gonna happen. at least the percentage of people.
Absolutely.
There will
No.
still be people that do all of the things, and there will be people that like somehow have some checker that says AI didn't touch any of this, but the percentage at least of content put out is going to be just a curve of that influencing people, I'm sure.
I completely agree, and that's what we see at Valor too.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, humanity and our culture past our lifetimes has been on this curve where what
Yeah.
can be produced has been going up and up since
Yeah.
cuneiform. Clay tablets, that wasn't a good
Oh, yeah.
thing. And so there wasn't a lot of replication.
Oh, I'm not saying sure that I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it was interesting for me to think
Yeah.
about it, that like it's like writing on a typewriter or handwriting something. It's like,
Right.
I don't do that. So is it
Right.
not as good as when the people that wrote whatever meditations and all the stuff? Yeah.
Right. What I think that that kind of the touch of the author, the fact that you did the critical thinking to be able to produce a book length piece about something
Yeah.
that's passionate to you and
Yeah.
share it with the world, that is never gonna go out of style. And I don't think AI can compete with it, because even if AI is smarter than us and AGI happens and we will still want to hear from people
Yeah.
about the people's experience.
Yeah.
And so it's still going to be a rare skill
Yeah.
to distill that in
Yeah.
a way that others can understand.
Yeah.
Speaking of work is fun, you mentioned 7 kind of frames that people need to think about.
Yeah.
What do you think, if I don't want to push you into a false most important one,
Yeah.
but is there one that's really very foundational for you?
I think for me, the one that starts the book is just story. And I think thinking about your life and in the context of the book, your work life as a story, and being a bit intentional about it. I think people are hesitant to write a vision about their work life because it might not happen. And that's probably true. It's probably not going to happen the way that you write it out. But the opposite is to not write it out and just kind of end up wherever
Take it as it comes.
end up wherever you end up. So I mean, we're in this weird process with our company vision, which is kind of the same idea, but putting it in the context of your company, where we wrote the 2030 vision.
Yes.
It's kind of getting closer. We wrote it like over a decade ago now. And it's like, it's just wrong, wrong, and wrong. But there is like a sentiment to it and a heartbeat to it, and like a feeling of it, that when I read it to our franchisees during training or an orientation, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, a third to half of this stuff is just absolutely, there's no way it's going to happen in 5 years, and we can kind of,
Or maybe some of it we don't even want to happen.
we don't even want to happen anymore. Yeah. Like it says, we're going to own multiple farms. Like we're definitely not going to own multiple farms. That's not going to work for our business. But talking about that and saying that out loud still like implies something about what we were thinking then that's still helpful for the future.
I think the very process of crystallizing your vision into something you can share with others is always worthwhile.
Yeah.
I mean, you call it story, but you're making me think about the budgeting process we go through with, Valor seed rounds. We're usually working with a first-time founder. That first-time founder almost always has some degree of very natural resistance to budgeting. I have natural resistance to budgeting too. I mean, it's just not fun.
Yeah.
But when you budget what's going to happen, it's really just putting dollars to your plan.
Yeah.
So let's not focus on the numbers, let's focus on the plans and then put numbers with the plans. It's always not gonna be the way you thought, but by seeing it and crystallizing it, you can talk to your team and say, here's the adjustment we're making.
Yep.
And it just becomes so much easier, right?
And I think more fun, which is what the book, I think from the book, it's also more fun. Like without that context, like a strategic plan of hitting this number of sales and all that, those can be fun goals, but it's not like
the story.
It's not the fulfilling type goal that will kind of like make you like it for years in my instance in time. And I think the last one, which is partly put here, these are the good old days, is really about patience and understanding that the part of the story that you are at right now is good, and the time when you get to where you are or don't get to where you are is going to feel about the same. So I always feel a little awkward saying these are the good old days out loud. And I always think like, it's going to be okay to say like a month or 3. And I'm like, okay, it's 2 years later. It still feels like the world has so much bad, terrible stuff, that this is not a true statement for like the world at large. It's a statement for yourself. Like for me, I've got a 1 year old and a 3 year old, and I've got a business that I like, and things are good, right?
Yeah.
And I could say like also I'm waking up at 4:15 because my son still doesn't sleep through the night and he's 15 months old. And my daughter is like throwing tantrums and the business is not performing as well as we like. I could look at the same thing
Same
either
fact
way.
set
Yeah.
and be, yeah.
So I think it's just a perspective. The whole book is really just a perspective of like, you're going to spend a lot of time in this thing called work. You probably have to do it. Most of us have to do it. Some of us do it just because we still love it and we could not do it, but the vast majority of people have to do it. You should put in an effort to figure out how to enjoy it. And you might not even succeed, but you should put in the effort. Like if you're
Yeah.
not putting in the effort to enjoy it, then like, I don't know a different way to say it. This sounds old fashioned, but like shame on you.
Yeah, I love the way you put it in the book that you have a relationship with work. And you use that word, relationship, and it's really pretty undeniable for most of us. So you work on your family relationship, you work on your fun,
Yeah.
like work on your work.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be amazed. You know?
Yeah, so that's been cool. I mean, I think all of these things are also like the power of writing a book, will this be a huge success, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's going to be an important book for like the King of Pops community and a small community, but also like for myself. Like
Yeah.
I thought a lot about this now. Like I wrote it down, not that far, and I'm sure in 20 years I'll look back and be like, this was a silly thing that you wrote. But right now I'm still feeling pretty good about everything, which I think is an accomplishment in its own, that is something made it out into the world and still feel good about the message in there.
Yeah, I was talking to a founder of a company earlier today, and he was like, so what about, when you make mistakes, like hiring badly? And I was like, hey, who says that's even a mistake? Because people have to learn.
Yeah.
So you hire the best you can, right?
Yeah.
And then you learn
Yeah.
that you could do differently now. And then you do differently.
Yeah.
But you have to learn.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I love about the way you've said, these are the good old days, is one of the first things I ever heard you say.
Yeah.
It's a classic Steven Carse, framing, is that, from a perspective of yourself in 10 years, looking back, there's always going to be some golden light.
Okay.
And so find your golden light in the
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah.
I really like it.
It's hard. I'm certainly not accomplishing that all the time, but I think I'm trying. I think that's the that's the fun part.
I want to ask you about not just your growing family that I get to see you riding the Beltline and
Biking.
a lot of great bike lessons. They're coming along so well.
Kind of safe, kind of not safe, debatable.
It's a kid, can't be perfectly safe.
Yeah.
But what about working with family? So, you have the opportunity and have worked with Nick really since the very, very early days of King of Pops. What's it like to work with your brother? What would you say to people who are considering working with family?
I think, we're the exception, right? I think you read blogs or hear things or news stories, it's typically negative.
The media really hates working with family, but as you know, I work with my husband, Jean-Luc, and I mean, to me, it's an ideal life.
Yeah, I think it's ideal. I mean, I think for me, it's been, great for talent reasons and for trust reasons and really like just for kind of the fun reasons. But
And the fun reasons.
it's been cool. Like, I mean, we can in a single breath, he has a young family now as well, but in a single breath, we can be going from like, are you going to be at swim lessons today? Did you see that report? What do you think of it? And what flavor? And we can like context switch in a single paragraph. Yes. And then other people will just be like,
I do that all the time.
It's that I love that.
I do too. What was it? You actually used a phrase in your book, and I apologize, I don't remember it, but it was work, not balance.
Blend, work-life blend.
Work-life blend.
Yeah.
Yes, that. It's working with family, I'm sure, when it doesn't work out, it is bad, but that hasn't been my experience. And there is a amazing blend. Yeah.
I think the thing and I'd be interested to hear more about how you guys work together. We're at an interesting point because Nick built P10 for a decade. Basically, that was his focus, and I think he was always.
And for our listeners that don't know,
Sorry.
P10 is a delivery company
It's a
that you
it's a
recently sold.
it's a food distribution company that was focused on like local. I kind of would call it like the minor leagues of food distribution. So like they start with us, then they get to Cisco or US Foods or UNFI or something. And that's probably a flaw with our business model because we were like nice guys. We didn't have contracts, so our best suppliers kept eventually leaving us.
Oh.
Needless to say,
So you
in
sold
hindsight, we sold it to a company that has all of those exclusive contracts and all those types of things. And they're just a little bit more sophisticated in that way. But for 10 years, that was mainly his focus, and mine was more on King of Pops. And there's a lot of overlap, like in the operational stuff. He's a little bit like he has more of the COO title. But that was a nice separation. And now we're at this period, that was in February when that company was acquired, where like we're now more closely working together again. And it is like, I mean, we just need to kind of rethink our org chart a little bit, but figuring that out and making sure we kind of nail it. Maybe nail it's the wrong word, but at least put some thought into it.
Yes.
But how do you guys?
Well, we met in EO, which is
Yeah.
how you and I met.
Yeah.
So
Great place.
a great place to meet entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So John Luke had already built a software development business to just under 100 people. So I was working in my business, which was a lot smaller. I really looked up to his entrepreneurship. He sold his business, and really I didn't think he would be joining mine per se. I really didn't. And that wasn't so much a natural fit. His experience with software development. I
Yeah.
was running marketing primarily for software companies.
Yeah.
So I'd actually tried to call on him, didn't win the business, but much bigger win overall. So it all works out, But then when I started the venture capital firm, suddenly we were amazingly complementary. And that wasn't in my design. I started the VC firm for completely other reasons, but as a software developer, I'd come to him for diligence.
I see.
It became supernatural that he would talk to the CTOs. And at first I'm like, well, do you know a developer that's really good at this? And he's like, yeah, one of the best at that. Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, what's your opinion?
Yeah.
And so over the last almost decade now, he's worked his way into being essentially the head of our AI diligence and expertise. So much so that he's built our infrastructure software,
Yeah.
mostly AI.
Yeah.
And so some of the things Valor's known for, like Vic, an AI that can diligence your deck, our Salesforce infrastructure, which he's an Apex coder, all of that is he built
Yeah.
or maintains.
Yeah.
And so he's been able to create an environment for us that just really helps our team be hyper productive.
Yeah.
And really is helpful to our founders in a very different way.
Yeah.
So it's sort of natural. I mean, not forced. It's not like, how do we fit this in?
Sure.
And the division of responsibilities is crystal clear. I have all kinds of business needs or compliance issues, or I want this to work this way. But then he's really capable of saying, well, this is how we could do it in code. And because I'd worked in tech before my own business, I don't even know if I ever even told you this, but I used to do requirements gathering and project management for IT departments. Like I worked for UPS's IT department there at Blinley. So I'm used to structuring things for developers to develop and then checking it and saying, is that good?
It's all been getting to this point.
I know. So it's been I mean, if we did the same things, it would not work, I'm sure, at all. But we're just really complementary. And so that's been super fun for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting brother relationship and significant other relationship, different things, but the same. I mean, it makes me think about like working with Nancy.
Yes.
And I think we would work well together and maybe not work well together. I don't really know. And I don't think it'll ever happen because she's a scientist and all that, but we definitely.
But you're very different.
We're very different. And when we talk about work, I think like it's a perspective that is appreciated and helpful. And I think, that's in a similar way. It's like fun to be able to, I know, 2% of the dynamics of what all is going on over there, but sometimes that like very distant perspective can even be helpful in a different way because you don't
Absolutely.
know enough to say something smart, so you kind of just say something and maybe it's she's like, okay, I'm kind of not listening to that, or what's a thought she wouldn't have been able to thought. So that's been cool. And obviously vice versa. She's got
There's a frame of thinking that I found out recently. I went to one of Chris Conley's kind of week-long retreats. It was for entrepreneurs. And I learned this framework called appreciative inquiry. And it's what you use. You can use it intentionally when you know a lot about something, but it's even better when you don't know a lot about something because then you ask honest
yeah,
questions. And that actually frees the other person
yeah.
to spark
Think
fresh
differently.
thinking.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good way of putting it. I think
yeah,
that's when we're at our best, that's what we're doing. And then sometimes like, you know,
yeah.
the other person's had a long day and you come home and you kind of want that. And they're like, I'm watching this
I'm
TV show.
completely, yeah, exactly.
And I put my headphones back
Or
in.
me, I'm in the tub with the book, I'm Kindling, like, no, 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 I'm getting in the tub, I'm with my
Yeah.
Kindle now.
We need to respect those context clues, I guess, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So getting back to the book, you mentioned that a lot of people, and I think this is truer now, even though when you wrote it a year ago, they hate work.
Mm.
Work is maybe scary. People feel they're going to be disrupted by AI.
Yeah.
They don't trust the system. I
Yeah.
think the system has abused trust in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I won't repeat what you said. What do you say to those people? Because your book really has a strong message for people stuck like that. And you related it to your own experience working for AIG as a
Yeah,
spreadsheet jockey.
I think there's a handful of different ways to think about it. I think there's two parts that come to mind for me right now is that having your work be enjoyable has to be something you're receptive to.
Mm,
And then the place you work and the employer likely needs to be receptive to it. So if you're not receptive to it and they are, or vice versa, it's not a 50-50 relationship. It's a 100-100 relationship. Like both people have to be doing it. So I think that is one thing that comes to mind that I think, at least when I'm thinking about AIG, that I know I was not doing. At that point in my life, I'd acknowledged that up until that point. So my brief story was like, started some silly businesses in high school that were fun to me, getting frisbees out of ponds and reselling them on eBay, refereeing soccer games, and then becoming a journalist. Hitting this point that I think a lot of people hit in their, maybe this age is shifting, but for me is like 25, where I'm like, okay, actually this isn't grown up life. Like I need to go make more money. And when I did that, I gave up on the idea that work could be fun, which had been kind of like
you're
a
driving
thesis
force.
of mine. And that's
Yeah.
why I chose what I majored in and all of that. But I wasn't making as much money as my friends were, and things were not happening as quickly as I wanted. And so all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I was wrong. Let's just go work. I think that's where a lot of people end.
You're like, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
a man. I'm gonna just take my
Exactly. I
hit.
gotta go provide, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's just for myself, but even so. And so I think the way I got lucky is I did that. I did not even give myself a chance to enjoy work. I mocked the idea of like enjoying work. I had nights and weekends, I enjoyed them. I went on great vacations. That was like what I thought life was going to be. And I got laid off. And when I got laid off, like, okay, let's give this fun thing like one last gasp. And so started King of Pops. And I mean, plenty of parts of it have not been fun, but overall, it's been a lot of fun. I think I had that in my heart when we started it, and it's something that is not. It's not a 100% success all of the time. Like, you walk in, I think you probably got greeted with a smile today, but there'd be plenty of days when you come in and people will be like, "Oh, it's just."
Yeah, because it's hard to run a business.
But I'm not sure that's what
IT.
came to mind. I'm not sure if there's a few different parts of the book that probably relate to that. I don't know if there's anything
Yeah,
else.
I think your point that people have to be willing to work on that relationship.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you want any kind of a good relationship with your children, your parents, your
Yeah.
partner, it's the first moments of it, there might be some romance when you have your newborn, some
Yeah.
romance when you
Yeah.
have your new boyfriend,
Yeah.
but it's going to develop into some level of commitment.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe a good place to kind of to round the conversation out is you talk about the discipline of moving on, even when you're having a good time. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about that. That's a totally original idea. Can I get you to share more about that?
Oh, I just have this belief that there's this part of your brain that is only going to get to enjoy things a certain amount. It's just a seesaw balance, if you will. And you don't really get to cheat it. Like people can take drugs, and then the other side of it is they've got a huge
They've got
crash.
drugs.
Yeah.
Like
You've
that.
got all the things. So I mean, I think there's like this skill which you never master of leaving at the right time. For me, that's at work. Like, I had a decade where I worked 80, 100 hours, proudly, happily, thought that's kind of what you had to do. And I've now got a period where like at 5:30, I really want to keep working. Like that's what I want to do. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I really want to keep working.
Well, you've been up since 4.
Since
But you want to keep working.
I want to finish what I'm doing and I can't actually.
Right.
And I know that I need to just leave, and that's still hard for me. But I do leave.
I do
I've
too.
kind of like committed to something
Totally
somewhere
relate
else.
to that. I mean, like it's never done and it is fun. But I now have like you, and it took me a while to get there with love.
Yeah.
But I have other fun in my life.
Yeah.
Work used to be my only fun.
Yep.
It really was.
Yeah. And you have to have that. Yeah. So you have a thing that you're going to go do. Hopefully it's fun too, but that's going to make like when you get back in it, whether it's 5 or 7 or 9 or noon, whatever time you start work, you get back in, like you get that little rush. I mean, it sounds so.
So how do you make yourself put it down? What do you say to yourself? What is the, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
What's the internal Steve Carse? You're here. It's 5 o'clock today. You're at that desk right over there that
Yeah.
we're looking at, and there's this very cool thing that you could get done if you just stayed another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Well, I actually, in my mind, I have to be on. My commitment is to be on at 5:30. So at a certain point, like things start falling apart in life, which that's a pretty. I'm adjusted enough to like know that the consequence of that is not worth me staying. But I do say at five exactly, I say like, is what I'm doing like super important? I need to work on it for the next 30 minutes, or should I go?
Yeah.
And that's like my little timer. And timers like in parenting now, I brought it up way too many times, but like if you say 5 minutes versus if you start your timer and show your kid like, here's my 5-minute timer. We're leaving the playground when this beeps. Versus if I just say in 5 minutes we're leaving the playground.
Then from fun to fun now.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know if they think bath time and dinner is fun yet. We need to work on that. We need to work on their perspectives. But we'll get there. There's one thing that I think I was in my mind that I think is worth relating. I don't even know how it comes back to this, but at the part of enjoying work and it being fun and it being a two-way street, like I was talking about, I think it's important to say like corporate America is not really like the problem. I think there are great bosses, there are great teams within large organizations. There's a lot of purpose, there's a lot of things. So it was me at my stage that was not receptive to figuring out what was going on there, finding out what are the cool things that the company is doing for like, you know, positive world. I'm sure those things existed. I didn't even like begin to investigate it. And so I think the message in the book, I hope, is each section ends with like, if it's up to you and it's not up to you. For most people, it's not up to you. And I hope the message does not come across as like, everyone go start your equivalent of a popsicle company, because I don't think that's the right choice for most people. And I also think it's the riskier path. Like there's probably something good where you are, I hope, is the actual message. But my story that has been assigned to me of getting laid off and starting a business, it makes it seem like the perspective is or ditch corporate America and do your own path. And that's kind of not the message that I want. I'm trying to kind of exit
What
that
you're
message a
saying
little
is
bit.
sort of lean into your own.
Yeah, lean into your own. Yeah. But I kind of like
And
to
it could be
state that.
fun.
It could be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. And I think the book title should have actually been, or would have a more accurate title would be Work Should Be Fun.
Yeah.
And I think I like the title a lot in most ways. And book titles are supposed to be somewhat provocative, so I think it is that, but it also is like it's too much of an internal eye roll for a lot of people. I don't know. I think like I just want to make sure I'm saying that enough times out loud to whoever is listening. Like it isn't about anything other than thinking about where you are spending your time and how to enjoy that time. It doesn't have to really apply to work, but
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That really resonates. I mean, it's a lot about personal accountability for your own enjoyment of your life, this one precious life.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful book. I hope people read it. There'll be a link in the show notes.
Appreciate it.
Promote it on social media.
Thank you.
While we're in the business of talking about what's cool ahead, are
Yes.
there any events that we should talk about? This will drop basically July 4th. So looking at the back half of the year, is there anything people should be focusing on with King of Pops that they shouldn't know?
Well, we got yoga going on, so if you want to do some free yoga with Pops, that still exists. It's like we're not letting go of things that we've done for a long time. So check out our website if you feel like doing some morning yoga on Saturdays with some other people. Yeah, I mean we've got a lot of great stuff happening. I think nothing is standing out for late July for me. July is in Atlanta is like it's a weird amount
It's
of
incredibly hot.
It's incredibly hot. So in the festival world, it actually is like a
Dip.
understandably dip. And
Yeah.
then late August, when school starts back up, we see an increase in our business. So we've got a lot of stuff happening in the fall. July is just kind of like, just find some air conditioning and
Lay back.
try to stay alive.
Keep the water on the
Water
garden,
But yeah, I mean,
So let me ask you about, you started this a little bit before we turned on the camera while I was still fussing
Yeah.
with things. You were like, I think I'm just really focusing on simplifying.
yes.
Yeah, and I wonder, do you have a thing how are you simplifying? Because your business is in many ways growing. You've got new franchisees,
Yeah.
people are signing up to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think the idea would be the prongs of business are being decreased.
Okay.
We have created a very cool business that has a lot of the farm is a cool story to be able to grow your ingredients, and then the compost now is taking the food waste back to our farm, and like that is a great story. And the food distribution company made sense because we were trying to distribute our product around town. And you talked about like lessons learned. I think one of them is like maybe we don't need to own everything. Maybe like sometimes just let capitalism do its thing and pay the person that is an expert at it instead of doing it ourselves. So what we've gotten really good at is a very specific thing of taking push carts to events and in a pleasant way handing them out. And so we're really just trying to lean into that very simple idea and do that more widely.
It's an iconic experience. I mean, I'll be walking in Charleston or anywhere almost in the
Yeah.
South, see the rainbow umbrella, and if it isn't King of Pops, I'm like, oh yeah, no, yeah, okay. I wanted a pop.
Yeah, our rainbow umbrella is one of my favorite.
But
Yeah.
yours is very special.
We have a special one. One of my favorite rainbow umbrella stories is I weirdly have like people that work as slingers now that were like our original customers, but young kids that are in like the 3 to 5 age group that are used to seeing the rainbow umbrella and associating with Pops.
Yes.
And then going to the beach for like the first time as conscious kind of humans. They're like, there's 40 rainbow umbrellas here and 0 of them are selling popsicles right now. The world is letting me down. That's a fun one to like.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your
Yeah.
time. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Have a great day.
You too.